something like our son has autism or a physical disability like Ivy has, these kids are so worth it, and they're worthy of a home. They're worthy of a family to take care of them. And they're so often they're overlooked. Everybody wants to adopt that perfectly healthy baby. That saying, like, we don't care if it's a boy or a girl as long as the baby's healthy. And I hate that saying, because I say, what if the baby's not healthy? Then what? It's these babies that are, quote, unhealthy or have special needs. They deserve just as much as a child that doesn't have that. And I think with our son's adoption, and that just really hit home for us, realizing that there's a huge need for families to adopt these children with special needs. It's a huge need. Even newborns, not just, older kids in foster care. There are newborns with disabilities and special needs that are being overlooked.
A new month is met with a new adorable kiddo. Her name is Ivy. Her parents have a beautiful story about the strength of family. With me is Josh Veach. I am Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Okay, so I had some things that I wanted to talk about throughout the progression of that conversation that we just had with Kari and Byron. And then as the conversation progressed, there was just more and more good things that I wanted to hash out and debrief. But the one thing that I really wanted to cover, and it's something that after Kari mentioned, how important it is for special needs kids to be considered an adoption, that they need a home. But there was also something that you kind of brought up that really, it struck me. And it was how these kids or how these homes are missing out on things that kids can give back to them. Can you elaborate on that for me? And you and I have witnessed this in person, what the joy that these kids can bring to families or bring to their families, their biological families.
Sure. Well, I think, having become a parent and having my kids grow up during this journey of Go Shout Love, of being involved with Go Shout Love, and then also being able to meet these other families, it's opened my eyes and helped shift my perspective on how these families, and specifically these kids on rare medical journeys, if you don't know them and you don't make the choice to get to know them, you can underestimate them greatly. Probably not intentionally, but you're just, even Byron made the comment when we were recording the portion for the video that I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically like, don't feel sorry for Ivy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where recognizing the value of these lives, the value of these kids, that yes, they need a home, just like every child waiting for a placement or an adopted home needs a home. They come giving, like they bring joy, They bring life, they bring love, they bring all these things, just like every child. And so, I think that's just a perspective shift that, for me, and I think probably for our whole team, that we've been able to benefit from by learning these families and getting to meet these kids, is to know that, despite there being some complexities in what goes on in the day to day, and that's not to downplay the significance of what these families have to go through. These kids have incredible value, and they bring value to the home. They bring value to the families.
So I found it kind of heartwarming, or at least I found an extra connection with this family, because they have adopted Ivy. And you have adopted a child. I've adopted a couple children, and there's just something about it that kind of spoke to me. Did you feel that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's something that in the adoption journey that you learn a lot, and it's different than a biological journey. But I can recognize the similarities in the story from the adoption standpoint. Obviously, there's it's different when there are other things that they have to face from the medical standpoint, but the choice of loving a child, especially the choice of loving a child that you've never met, that you may not know their full backstory, you may not know, what that history is from the family line, whether it's genetics or impacted by choice of a parent.
Yeah.
The choice to love a child is a special thing. And, the way that Kari and Byron talk about their adoption journey with Ivy is really special. And I think people are really going to love that part of their story.
I agree. And the way they talk about her is kind of a way that I feel like that she was always theirs even before they met her.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. The last thing I kind of want to ask you or talk to you about is, we were wrapping up the conversation and you asked Byron and Kari if they had anything they wanted to add. And she was quick to answer and jump on the fact that I want to be a resource for people who are also going through this, because just researching it, you can find yourself alone or scared or whatever. And I guess what I want to continue to bring up is that is people can use others, especially in the Go Shout Love community, as a resource. How important was it that she said that right there? I absolutely loved it.
Well, I think it's important because it's a reflection of her experience, right? So when they got their when they understood and were looking into Ivy's diagnosis, the first things that they find are devastating. And we've heard that from other families when it comes to, what they call D-Day, when they get their diagnosis. The next, and I think this was even in part of our conversation with Heather Avis, the author, is that a lot of times the initial response to a family getting a diagnosis, the external response, whether it's from loved ones, whether it's from people in the medical field, is "I'm sorry. Your child has Down syndrome. I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. And it's this default. It's an unintended default to less than. I don't think that's the intention, but it comes across as your child's less than. And what I think is cool about Kari's response to that is she wants the joy and the possibilities and the hope and all these different things that Ivy is living out and showing. That's what her Instagram channel is all about. That for other people that might come across that diagnosis to be able to see that and not only some of the things that they might find online or the things that are negative. And so being able to, this is an oversimplification, but if your child was born and they said your son has blonde hair, I'm sorry. Like you wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
You would say your child has blonde hair, but you have a beautiful child. And again, that's an oversimplification. I'm not trying to downplay any challenges and things that come with a diagnosis, but to recognize at the heart of the diagnosis, there's still a child that has beauty, that has joy to bring to the world, and is deserving, is worthy of love and placement in this world and placement in a loving family. And so I think that's really cool that she's intentionally taken that perspective that I want Ivy's life to be lived and give her the opportunity to live the life that would help others see beyond a diagnosis.
It's a great word, and a great word that I would like to spread out to more people. I would love for as many people as possible to listen to that episode, listen to this podcast so that they can know these perspectives and know that they are not alone. So if you are listening, please share this podcast, share this episode with a friend. If you know someone who has a child on a rare medical journey, or if you just know of somebody who needs to hear a good message or wants to relate to a family who has a good message to share, please share this podcast. We are on many platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Before we jump into the conversation, Josh, what can people do?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, sharing this podcast, rating us on the platform that you're listening is a great way to help share. Two things that you can do. The first thing is, if you want to help make a difference in Ivy's life specifically, every item sold in February will be used to help with travel expenses to their doctor, Ivy's doctor, who's in Delaware. And so as you'll hear in the conversation, why that's important to the family. And then if you want to help families every month, just like Ivy, you can sign up for a monthly t-shirt subscription and help families every month. And so that's at goshout.love/subscribe. And then lastly, if you or someone you love or know has a child with a rare medical journey and you'd like them to be considered, you can go to our website as well and place a nomination at goshout.love and just click on the nominate tab in the navigation, and that'll walk you through that process.
Thanks, Josh. One quick note that I want to give our listeners before we begin is that this was recorded virtually, as a lot of things are nowadays, and that comes with some recording challenges. Now, we do our best to clean it up, but the challenges include background noise and occasional dips in volume. Now, I only bring that up to encourage you, the listener, to try to stick with it after a few moments. Not only do those things tend to level out during the conversation itself, but this story is one that I don't want you to miss out on. So please stay with it. It will be worth it. Now, here is Kari and Byron talking about Ivy.
Okay. All right. Byron, Kari, welcome to the Go Shout Love podcast. It's so great to have you guys.
Thank you. We're excited to join you.
And we are excited to be shouting love all month long for your adorable daughter, Ivy. And so we're just going to jump into asking some questions, and we're going to cover a ton of different topics. But what we like to start with is just to get to know your family. So give us a rundown of who we're talking to.
Hey, Byron and I have been married for 23 years. We have 6 children. Tessa, who is 18, Ruby, who is 15, Leo, who is 10, Kiki is 7, Emmett is 3, and Ivy just turned 2.
Awesome. So you have a full house.
Definitely.
And we're going to jump into Ivy's story specifically, and in just a second, but I know that adoption overlaps with Ivy's story, and adoption has played a pretty significant role in your family's life. And so if you're open to it, just tell us a little bit about how you found in your place in your life adoption to play such an important role.
It was really Kari's lifelong desire to want to adopt a child, and like a lot of teenage boys and young men, really didn't think about adoption, worried about whether or not if we were to take someone else's child in, if you could love it as your own. We ended up having such a difficult time with pregnancies that we felt like adopting was a good next step for her. And it was a wonderful experience. All the concerns, all the worries I had really didn't come to fruition, and ended up we adopted 3 more times. And the last time, Kari convinced me. Again, this is all Kari's doing.
Wives are good at that, right?
Yeah, he was. He was like, okay, we're done. And I was like, well, we'll see.
I think it was important to her, and after doing some research, I thought we had it in our home, in our hearts, to adopt one more, and we were actually considering going into the special needs program before, and we just wanted to, if this was going to be our last time, we wanted to do that. Just with the hope and the belief that everything will work out how it's supposed to, and that we weren't going to be placed with a child that wasn't meant for our family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emmett, he was diagnosed with autism when he was 2, and early on we knew he had autism. We didn't get formal diagnosis until he was 2. But I think we kind of were thinking, like, we're already raising a child with special needs, and we're doing it, and we're, we're doing this, and we can do it again. And I think I felt so strongly that we needed to adopt again. And I felt so strongly that I wanted to adopt a child with special needs. And I think we had originally kind of what was pushing us into it was wanting to adopt a baby with Down syndrome. And that was kind of our immediate push. Like, that's kind of what we were envisioning with our family. But then when we got the call about Ivy, we knew immediately that she was the child meant to be with our family.
Yeah. Well, so how old was Ivy when you got to meet her for the first time?
When we first heard about her, she had just turned 5 months. We didn't actually have placement of her for a month later. So she was 6 months when she joined our family.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's meet Ivy. Tell us about her personality. Describe her for us.
Ivy is very happy, but she's also very strong-willed and a very, like any other toddler, is going to give you a run for your money, and it's very demanding. And but on the same token, she gets what she wants, and we have, with 5 older siblings, and she's the star, so she knows she's the star, and she gets what she wants. She gets all the attention, and she loves it. And it's not like being left alone or put down.
Right. Yes, if you set her down, she's got, with all her siblings, she's always got somebody with her. She's always got somebody playing with her, holding her, and so she gets very upset if you set her down and walk out of the room, because she's just used to having that constant attention.
So she is very social, it sounds like. She's a social butterfly.
Yes, she is. And she doesn't talk a lot yet. She gibbers a lot, and she, makes a lot of little happy noises. She is starting to say some words now. Like when our son Leo walks into the room, she'll yell, "Leo!" And, she can say a lot of her siblings' names, but that's kind of the extent of what she can say at this point. But
she can say "Ma."
Yeah. She doesn't call me mommy or mom. She calls me Ma. And so she'll yell "Ma," all the time if she wants something, and it just cracks me up because I'm used to being mommy.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about her relationship with her siblings. How would you describe that?
They see her as the baby, and she is the baby of the family, and, they give in to anything she wants. They all think she's cute and adorable, and, just like any little sibling, I think she can get on their nerves a little bit, but they all love her, and they love especially our next oldest daughter, who's 7. She plays so well with her, and she's just kind of at that stage where, she's old enough to be really good and caring with her, but young enough to where she just loves playing dolls and getting on the floor. And it's wonderful having that range of siblings.
Yeah.
Because she's got Emmett and Kiki and Leo. Leo's 10, who will still just play with her and have fun with her and be silly. And then she's got our oldest daughters, who are 15 and 18, who they play more of the motherly role with her and, take care of her and do things. So she kind of knows, like, okay, Tessa and Ruby, if I need something, I can go to Tessa or Ruby, and they'll take care of me, where the other kids, she knows they'll play with me. It's been really to have that range of ages in our children, because she has the siblings that she can play with. And then I have the older girls who can help me, and which they help me so much. Our daughter, Ruby, she's 15, and she's very motherly, and she just takes over for me if I get overwhelmed or if I'm needing to do something else. She just steps right in and helps me and takes care of them.
That's awesome. And one of the words that you guys had used to describe Ivy up front was feisty. So it sounds like maybe she knows her place in the family. She recognizes her cuteness, and she's learned to weaponize her cuteness for her benefit. Does that sound good?
Most definitely.
Picking back up on the adoption journey and how Ivy became part of your family, how did you know? Was there a moment that you just knew that this little girl is right where she belongs in our family?
Well, I think for me, it was just the initial phone call. Byron actually got the phone call. We had been called earlier in the day about a different situation that we ultimately was too much of a situation for us to handle. And we had called our caseworker to say no to that situation. And she told us about Ivy. She told Byron about her. And he texted me, and it was just 5-month-old baby girl with dwarfism. And I think at that moment, like, I knew she was meant to be with our family. And it was just, one of those moments that's just like life changing. Like, this is it. This is our baby. And I think for Byron, he felt much the same, just knowing what her diagnosis was and the physical limitations that she was going to have.
Yeah. And I think that's what's different with adoption is, it's not the moment that you are placed with the child. You almost start forming a relationship with the agency and the child, a long time before. So you kind of just go into situations with that feeling that this is meant to be, even before you even see any pictures or even know or even seen the child. You just get that feeling. And there's been a lot of situations that haven't worked out or have fallen through, and you're just not sure. And then for each of the 4 kids that we've adopted, you just, everything seems to fall into place, and you just have that, that feeling that this is your child and it's meant to be.
Yep. And there's something that's really, once that relationship begins, and from the anticipation phase all the way up to the placement and legal adoption phase, there's this, you just get to this point where it's no longer, my wife and I, we've been fortunate enough, we've been able to adopt our oldest from the foster system in Missouri. And it is it's almost weird how little we think about the fact that he wasn't just always ours from his first day. It's just, that's our kid. And there's no difference. It doesn't even cross our minds. And so I think it's just so cool that you guys have been able to experience that for your whole family, not just for Ivy, but for all the kids that you've been able to adopt, because there's this, the love that comes in those moments and being able to grow your family in that way. Unless you've experienced it, I think it's a little hard for some people to understand or to fathom the idea of that kind of relationship being so real and so genuine when it's not blood, and yet it is 100% blood. You know what I'm saying? It's equivalent.
Well, people will ask me, with all the kids, when did you start loving them? And before I even knew they existed,
Right.
I love the idea of that child. And with, a couple of our adoptions we had, they were all so different, but, with, like, for example, with Kiki's adoption, we had a relationship with her birth mother about 2 months before she was born. And you just, I fell in love with her birth mom. I just love her to pieces. She's amazing. You fall in love with that birth mom so much that, when she has the baby, you're just already so in love with her and the baby and the whole situation. And it falls into place so well.
Absolutely. As that, from that notification and I think, Byron, you may want to clear this up for me. You wrote a letter at one point. Is that right? To the adoption agency?
Yes. The famous letter.
Would you be willing to share about your letter, the famous letter?
We were, like Kari said before, we got the phone call about, at that time, it was just a potential placement. And it really was the decision of the agency to match that child with that's family. And
they had us and one other family that they were considering. And I think we felt that panic, like don't consider another family, she's ours. And like, what are they doing? And so
yeah, it's like, well, why couldn't we just be frank and write a letter and saying, this is why we think we should be the ones to be her parents? And so did anybody ever done that before? And like, well, they don't say we can't. So
we felt like we were taking a risk because we didn't want to like push ourselves too far into it. With everybody at their agent at the agency knows our family. We had already adopted 3 times, and so they know us well. And the caseworker Tanya, she knows us very well. But still, it was risky writing it and just kind of putting it out there. And he wrote it, and it still makes me cry when I read it, or even if I even think about it. He did a really good job writing it and getting our feelings out. But still, when we pushed send, we had that little bit of panic, like, we shouldn't have done this. He said that when they got the letter, that they passed it around to everybody there, and everybody was crying. And, I think it really touched them. And it was, it was from our heart. It was from his heart. And I'm very thankful that we did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Place her with our family anyways, and it just made me look like a sappy guy.
Well, hey, it's I think there's something to be said about feeling so strongly about something that you just have to voice it. You can't sit on it. And I think that's special. Can you give us an idea of the theme of the letter, of where did you come from? What was the driver behind that?
Yeah, I think that there was a connection with me and with our family and Ivy. I grew up being different and having been born with deformity and my lower right leg. And so having that difference and having to go through an amputation when I was a child and learning to adapt and wear a prosthesis and growing up with that, I just felt that connection, that I could kind of be that guide to help Ivy be different and yet, accept her differences, celebrate being different, and still, be someone who's worthy, who can accomplish so much. I mean, I know I'm never going to be an Olympic runner. And, after I turned 25, I was okay with that. But I still love to do what I could do. And it meant a lot of just learning how to adapt, learning how to use new modern technology is really cool now. And that's okay. I mean, it's learning how to accept what you can do and use the tools that are out there. And it makes life fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And outside of the functional element of that, there's the emotional, the interpersonal elements of having gone through that journey. Only adds to your equipping, how you are equipped to be her dad and to be able to help her navigate the different stages that she will go through. And obviously, I'm sure that resonated with the agency as well, to know that, hey, these folks, outside of already loving this child so much that they're convincing us and they're making sure their voice is heard, they've got extra tools already. They've got extra experiences that they can share to help her navigate those days. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about Ivy's diagnosis and what that is, how rare is it, and how it affects her.
So Ivy's diagnosis is diastrophic dysplasia, and it's a rare form of dwarfism. It affects 1 in 500,000 births, which, to give you an idea, the most common form of dwarfism, achondroplasia, it affects 1 in every 20,000 births. So it's pretty rare. And there's not a lot of information out there. And what you do find when you're Googling it is scary and it's overwhelming. And there's just a lot, it is so rare. There's not a lot of doctors who can treat it. And there's not a lot of people that we've been able to find that have it. So that's been an added difficulty with it all. Yeah.
And how does that diagnosis impact, if someone's listening and they've never been on a rare medical journey or been close to someone that has a rare medical journey, there's a lot of the day-to-day things that they take for granted. What are some of those day-to-day impacts on Ivy's life, on your family's life that have come with that diagnosis?
It affects pretty much every part of her body. It doesn't affect her cognitive ability, but it affects her hands, her feet, her neck, her spine, her knees. I mean, it affects everything. Her joints, cartilage, bones.
And you look at Ivy and she's so cute. And then, the most telling aspect is when we saw the MRI and the x-rays. And essentially it's, when you look at her body, she just has bones that are out of place everywhere.
Right. They don't go together. First on her x-ray, it was really amazing to see. And like her hips don't go into her hip sockets.
Her knees don't connect.
Right.
Fingers don't connect.
Right.
And so it's quite amazing, you look at what the human body can do. But on that same token, that's really what the journey, I think, is not to say, well, Ivy's going to be able to walk and we're going to fix this and go on about our lives. Is we're gearing up for a series of lifelong procedures that really is going to, first and foremost, make her as comfortable as we can and mobile as we can with what's necessary. And really we just don't know what necessary is going to be or how mobile she is going to become. And that can change. I mean, we know a lot of people that are older now with this that said, I was fine up until I hit, 10 or even in my 20s. And then it's just degenerative to the point where now they're just in something that's assisted or a mix of being in a walker.
Because it is degenerative, which is, that's the hardest part about this, is just knowing that it's degenerative and knowing that the progress that she's making now, she might lose that. And, and to just, it's sad, but at the same time, she's doing so well right now. So we try not to think about it. But, and we know a lot of adults, not a lot. We know a few adults who have it.
The two have had it.
Right.
So they say.
Right. Who are doing very well. And, and so that helps to see them, doing wonderful. But it's the degenerative part of it is probably, that was the hardest part of her diagnosis to accept. And when we first heard about it, because we don't know what her future will look like as far as mobility and pain. And a woman I know who has it told me, I've never known a time in my life when I haven't had pain. That really hit me hard because pain is just a natural part of this disease. And I don't know if Ivy's in pain now. It's hard to tell.
Or if she's learned to live with it. She may have a baseline pain that has been normal for her all along that we would never be able to handle. But
and like when she's walking, I think, is that hurting her? Because her physical therapist told me, I don't see how she couldn't be in some sort of pain.
Yeah, I mean, every time she walks, you can hear her joints cracking.
Yeah,
and
they pop.
And you're just, is this okay for me to be? Do I allow her to walk? Do I stop?
Yeah.
From walking? Not really, because she's going to do what she wants. But.
Right.
Yeah. Byron, you earlier before we started the podcast conversation, you made a reference to trying to know when to push her and when to try to hold her back. That probably wasn't the way that you put it, but how do you find that place, knowing that she's in pain and that she's there's a certain level of fragility there, not in a negative way, but just in the physical way of her body. How do you find that place of knowing when to push her and when to try to be more protective?
Well, I feel that she would let us know if she wants to be climbing up the stairs, or, especially like now when she's recently just started walking independently, and she'll walk back and forth to people or to things that she can grab onto. And, and of course we're clapping, yay, because we're excited to see her. And so that eggs her on to keep going, knowing though that she's getting tired and that, well, if she's in pain, she'll stop. And
yeah, like yesterday, she was walking around the house and she was following me everywhere. And she was, and I was thinking, she's been walking a long time. And when she walks, her airway is very narrow because of her diastrophic dysplasia. And so her breathing will get labored sometimes when she's walking. And then I noticed her, she's getting a little more labored breathing more and more. And then she went over to her walker and got her walker and started walking with that. And it's like, she knew she was getting tired, and she knew she was, wearing down a little bit. So she got the walker for support and then kept going with that. But I think we just trying to trust her with it, to think, well, she'll stop if it's too much, or, she'll go sit down if she's tired, but she just goes, all day. It's just, It's incredible.
Well, and I remember the doctor that we took her to in Delaware, a specialist that deals with patients with dwarfism, told Kari, she said, she might look young, she might look small, but don't treat her like she looks, treat her age.
Right.
Mm.
And so that's kind of hard. I mean, she still looks so young and fragile, and we worry about that. But in all reality, she's probably a lot more stable and verbal than give her credit for. And
yeah. Well, and the more that feistiness comes out and that strong-willed, you start to learn, she's got fight. She's tough. She can handle it. You referenced how her, going to her walker and using that. Now, this isn't just any walker, right? She has, this walker has a story. Is that right?
Yeah. So that was the other part of what we were told was, hey, get her upright, get her walking. And says, you can try to go and find a walker that may fit a child that's that small. I mean, because, when I was built a custom chair for her, and the legs are only 2 inches tall. I mean, they just don't make a lot of walkers for kids, let alone very small kids. And if they do, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for something. You're going to
fight insurance for 8 months first.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, our doctor in Delaware said, you're going to have to just make this out of PVC pipe, because they don't make them this small. So when you get home, get going with this. And I was thinking at the time, like, I hate to admit that I was thinking this, but I'm just thinking, like, what do you mean get her up and walking? She wasn't even sitting up at that time. And I was thinking, like, I don't know, and I'm worried, like, can she really do this? And we got home, and Byron got to work, and he made that walker, and we set her in front of it, and she got so excited, and she was just squealing. Like, she just knew this was my walker. And if anybody else touched that walker, she would scream. It's her walker. And she started pulling herself up to it. And we set like a yoga block underneath her, set her, and had her just kind of get the feel of it. And started standing up to it. And we were like, this is amazing. She's standing up. And then little by little, she just started taking steps. And about a week or two after Byron made it, she was like running around the house.
That's so awesome.
Chasing her sister and brother, and we couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. And she, she still uses it. She's walking independently some now, but she still uses that walker. And it's kind of like her little safe spot. She knows that's my walker, and that helps me get around. And if I do anything different to it, she gets really upset. Like, we put different wheels on it, and looking at them, she was not happy with these different wheels, and decorated it for Christmas pictures, and she did not like that.
No, humans don't do well with change.
Exactly. She's very attached to that walker, and it's been life changing for her.
A lot of people made PVC walkers, and I struggled with trying to find good wheels for it, because you go to the store and you find caster wheels. I had the idea of, kind of skateboard ball bearing wheels, and then realized the perfect solution was scooter wheels. So those razor scooters that you see all over, and if you happen to run over one in the driveway, you can use the wheels.
That's awesome.
They're rubber on the outside, so they don't, scratch anything, go anywhere, outside, inside.
Yeah.
And they just go smooth. So that was my contribution, my breakthrough in the world of walker creation for kids, was putting wheels on.
Thank you, Shouters, for listening. This is just part 1 of this conversation. Part 2 will be available soon. You will hear a lot more about Ivy and her family. Kari and Byron have more to share and impart on all of us. Now at Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos like Ivy. In Ivy's short 2 years, she has had to face so much, but that hasn't stopped her from lighting up life for everyone she meets. She teaches us that we can shine bright no matter what. That is the inspiration for this month's The Shine Bright Design t-shirt. It represents Ivy, a feisty, silly, and determined 2-year-old from Lamar, Colorado. Every purchase in February will help cover the travel expenses from Colorado to Delaware for specialized medical care. Visit our website, goshout.love, to support Ivy through the purchase of a t-shirt, a sweater, hoodie, tumbler, or other items. 2 final notes. The first is that the best way to shout love is by starting a subscription and shouting love every month for every kiddo and their family. Join us and be a constant part of the Go Shout Love family and participate in making a difference in the lives of these kids and in our community. The second note is please rate, review, or share this podcast, or at least leave a comment on whatever platform you are listening on. Do you have a question for the family? Do you have an encouraging note for them? Please share it. Join us as we continue to do our best to go shout love. Thanks.